Everyone thought the World Cup in 2018 was going to be predictable. The same old giants. The same old stories. Maybe one or two surprises, but nothing that would shake the entire football world. Instead, this tournament turned into a crime scene for reputations. Legends fell. New stars were born in a matter of days. A whole nation that hosted the tournament went from laughingstock to national miracle. And the most shocking part, almost nobody saw it coming. A World Cup nobody trusted. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. When the world first heard where the 2018 World Cup would be held, the reaction was not pure excitement. There was confusion, suspicion, even jokes. People said things like, "This is not a traditional football country. This choice is all about politics. This tournament will be boring and low quality." Many expected empty seats, bad organization, and forgettable matches. Some even predicted that this World Cup would be one of the weakest in modern history. But football loves to prove people wrong. The first shock of this World Cup was not a goal or a red card. The first shock was that the host country did not collapse under the pressure. It did the opposite. The host that refused to be embarrassed before the opening match. Almost nobody took the host team seriously. Their recent results were poor. Their world ranking was low. Even their own fans were not sure if they should hope for anything more than a decent fight. The world looked at them as just the host who fills the schedule. But the opening game changed everything. The host nation walked onto the pitch with the eyes of the world on them. People expected nerves, fear, and maybe a quiet defeat. Instead, the crowd saw a team playing like they had been personally insulted by every joke made about them. They attacked. They scored. They kept scoring. Every goal felt like a slap in the face to those who said, "They do not belong here." Suddenly, memes turned into respect. The world asked, "Wait, are they actually good?" The host team had just sent the first message of the World Cup. "We are not here to decorate your tournament. We are here to ruin your predictions." The fall of a champion, but the biggest early earthquake did not come from the host. It came from a team that arrived as the defending champions, the same team that had once destroyed Brazil on their own soil for 2-1+3. A team built on discipline, structure, and a reputation of always surviving. Germany. They came to 2018 with expectations of another deep run. Maybe not an easy repeat, but at least a strong performance. Instead, they met a brutal truth. The badge on your chest does not win games. The past does not protect you. The group stage became a nightmare. They faced teams that were supposed to fear them. But those teams had watched 7-1 in the previous tournament. They knew giants could bleed. Germany started to look slow, predictable, tired. Then came the matches that shocked the world. A team that used to crush opponents with machine-like precision suddenly looked like they were running in mud. Their midfield could not control games the same way. Their attack seemed disconnected. And when the dust settled, the unthinkable had happened. The reigning champions were out in the group stage. For a football nation that expects at least the quarterfinals as a minimum, this was not just a bad result. It was a humiliation. Fans who grew up trusting the German machine saw it stall on the world's biggest stage. The message of 2018 became louder. No one is untouchable anymore. The giants who forgot to be giants. Germany were not the only ones in trouble. Other big names arrived with heavy shirts and light performances. Some champions looked old. Some stars looked tired. Some teams looked like they believed their own hype. And this World Cup punished that attitude without mercy. One former champion came with a golden generation that many believed had missed its moment. They played like a luxury car with an empty fuel tank. Beautiful names. Beautiful resumes. No killer instinct. Another traditional power started the tournament with drama around its coach, chaos behind the scenes. On the pitch, they fluctuated between brilliance and complete confusion. If 2018 taught us anything, it was this. A famous history is dead weight if you cannot run, press, and suffer like a hungry underdog. The rise of the teams nobody took seriously while several giants were stumbling. Something else was happening on the other side of the tournament. Teams that were usually described with phrases like brave losers and good fighters suddenly stopped accepting those roles. They stopped playing for respect and started playing to destroy brackets. A small European team with a population smaller than many cities in other countries began to outplay global powers with cold logic and endless stamina. A group of players from a country often ignored on the biggest stage decided they were tired of being written off as hard-working but limited. They pressed. They countered. They played with fire in their eyes and ice in their veins. The tournament that was supposed to be boring turned into a collection of stories where the script flipped. Dark horses became main characters, favorites became background victims. The day a superstar's world collapsed. Among all these stories, one image became a symbol of this World Cup. A global superstar walking off the pitch, head down, completely powerless, as his team failed once again on the biggest stage. He had come to 2018 with pressure. People said this might be his last chance in his prime. Instead of the glory that many had hoped for, his tournament became a mirror of his country's deeper problems. He scored. He assisted. He tried to drag his team forward. But football is not basketball. One man cannot do it all. At the end, the image of him walking away from the World Cup early felt like the closing scene of an era that never fully reached its potential. This was one of the saddest what-if stories of 2018. And the World Cup did not wait for him. It moved on without pity. A new kind of chaos. What made this World Cup truly wild was not just who won or who lost, but how they did it. Matches that looked settled turned into chaos in a few minutes. Teams that were dominating suddenly panicked. One late goal in one stadium could change the entire bracket. For fans, it was amazing. For players and coaches, it was pure stress. You could not turn off the TV at minute 80 and feel safe. You had to watch until the last second, because in 2018 the last second often carried a knife. This new kind of chaos was powered by one thing: a generation of players and coaches who refused to respect the old hierarchy. They pressured bigger teams from the first minute. They did not stand back and wait for a polite defeat. They attacked like they believed they belonged. And many times, they were right. The strange fate of the host nation. Meanwhile, the host team kept doing something nobody expected. They did not win the tournament, but they refused to become the embarrassment many predicted. They fought through matches most people thought they would lose easily. They ran more. They pressed more. They put their bodies on the line for every ball. At one point, they went further than nations with richer histories and more expensive leagues. Suddenly, a team that was a global punchline at the start of the year turned into a symbol of national pride. The World Cup had taken one of its weakest hosts on paper and turned them into a storyline nobody could ignore. The shadow of a dark pattern hidden behind the goals and the drama. There was another pattern that made this World Cup feel different. For several tournaments in a row, the defending champions had started to fall early. In 2018, that pattern continued. It made people ask uncomfortable questions. Are modern players too tired after long club seasons? Are coaches too stubborn with old systems and old names? Does winning a World Cup secretly curse your next one? Whatever the reason, 2018 turned that pattern into a scary trend. If you arrived as champion, the World Cup did not bow to you. It targeted you. A tournament of broken predictions. By the end of the group stage and into the early knockouts, one thing was clear. The pre-tournament predictions were useless. Teams that were expected to walk easily to the quarterfinals were already at home. Teams that were supposed to be happy to be there were still alive. Some big stars were gone. Some new heroes were just warming up. The World Cup 2018 did something rare. It made experts look foolish and made ordinary fans feel like anything could happen. That is exactly what a World Cup should be. Uncomfortable, unpredictable, unstable. But the most shocking part of this tournament was still waiting. Because from the ruins of the giants and the chaos of the group stage, one story was quietly building. A story about a team that had never won a World Cup before. A team that was tired of being called talented but mentally weak. A team that would ride this chaos all the way to the trophy. And between them and their destiny stood a small nation with a huge heart, a lethal striker with fire in his eyes, and a midfield general who refused to grow old. By the time the group stage of the 2018 World Cup was over, one thing was obvious. This was not just another tournament. This was a mass execution of reputations. World champions were sent home early. Golden generations were exposed. Teams that had never been taken seriously suddenly started writing chapters that nobody could ignore. And in the middle of this chaos, two teams quietly built a path to the final. One with the cold face of a calculating machine, and one with the burning heart of a small country that refused to stay small. Germany. The curse of the champions for decades. Germany were the team everybody feared. They were the ones who always got the job done, even when they played badly. But in 2018, something dark returned to the World Cup. The so-called curse of the champions. In the previous tournaments, defending champions had started to fall early. People joked about it. They said, "It will not happen to Germany. They are too serious, too professional." They were wrong. Germany looked slow in their opening game, losing to a team they were expected to beat with ease. Their attacks looked heavy. Their defense looked confused. They saved themselves once with a last-second moment of magic. The world thought, "There it is. The machine is back." But it was an illusion. In their final group match, they only needed a result against South Korea to stay alive. For most of the game, it looked like a frustrating 0-0 that would still save them. Then the impossible happened. In the dying minutes, South Korea struck not once but twice. Germany were not just beaten. They were knocked out at the bottom of their group for the first time in many decades. The defending champions became yet another victim of the curse. For a country used to semi-finals and finals, this was not just a bad tournament. It felt like the end of an era. The world saw that even the most trustable football machine could rust. Spain. From tiki-taka to frozen tactics, Spain arrived with their own heavy story. They were still associated with the beautiful passing style that had once dominated world football. But by 2018, that magic had started to fade. Their tournament began with drama off the pitch. Coaching changes, confusion, tension. On the pitch, they looked like a team trapped in time. They passed and passed and passed, but without the same speed, the same purpose, the same killer blows. They scraped through the group, never fully convincing. Then came the host nation. Russia were supposed to be the respectful victims in this match. Spain had more stars, more experience, more titles. Instead, the game turned into a slow, suffocating struggle. Spain kept the ball, but could not break down the wall in front of them. Russia defended with everything they had. The match drifted to extra time and then to penalties. In the shootout, the unthinkable happened. Spain's passes meant nothing. Their history meant nothing. The host nation, the team people laughed at months earlier, knocked them out. Tiki-taka died that day in the coldest way possible. Not with a heroic defeat, but with a flat, empty performance that made people ask whether the style itself had become a prison. Argentina. The last breath of a broken giant. Argentina arrived in Russia still hoping for a miracle from Lionel Messi. But their problems ran deeper than one man could fix. They stumbled through the group. They drew against teams they should have beaten. They were crushed by a rising European side led by a midfield genius who played as if he could see the future to passes ahead. Even when they reached the knockout rounds, they did not look like a unified team. They looked like a group of individuals hoping Messi would cover every crack. Then came the clash with a young French team full of speed, power, and confidence. The match turned into a wild roller coaster. Goals from distance, comebacks, chaos. But one image stood above all the action. A teenager in blue sprinting from his own half, leaving defenders behind like cones at a training ground. That player announced himself to the world as a new kind of superstar. Fast, fearless, merciless. Argentina were sent home. Messi's last World Cup in his true prime ended not with a trophy, but with a match that felt like a passing of the torch. The old king of football walked off the stage, while a new prince sprinted across it at full speed. Brazil. The dream that collided with a golden generation. Brazil came to 2018 with one goal: erase the pain of the 7-1 disaster from the previous tournament. They had rebuilt. They had superstar talent. They had a system. This time, they wanted redemption. And for much of the tournament, they looked solid. They defended better. They attacked with intelligence. They seemed ready to go very deep. Then they met a team that many people called the Golden Generation, a group of players from a small European country who had been hyped for years but had never fully delivered on the biggest stage. In their quarter-final, something shocking happened. Brazil, the kings of attack, were punished by the sharp, clinical play of these European stars. The game felt like a battle between history and modern football. For once, history lost. Brazil tried to come back. They scored. They pushed. But the European goalkeeper turned into a wall, and the Golden Generation finally played like gold. Brazil were out. Not in the semi-final. Not in the final. In the quarter-final, again. For a nation that measures success in trophies, this was another round. For the Golden Generation, it was proof they were not just a marketing phrase. England. The team that finally faced its own ghost. England entered the World Cup 2018 with low expectations. Their fans had been hurt too many times. Too many early exits. Too many penalty nightmares. But this team was different. Younger. Less arrogant. More modern. Something strange started to happen. They played with more freedom. They scored from set pieces. They did not collapse at the first sign of trouble. Then came the moment that nobody believed would actually happen. England went to a penalty shootout in the knockout stage and won. It was as if the entire country had been carrying a curse for decades, and suddenly it broke. People were shocked. Fans cried in pubs and streets. The world joked that the phrase "football is coming home" finally had some weight. England did not win the tournament. But 2018 was the World Cup where they at least killed one of their oldest demons. Russia. From joke to national miracle, the host nation, who started as the lowest-ranked team in the tournament, refused to go quietly. They did not just win one match. They made it to the knockout rounds. Then they beat a former world champion on penalties. Their goalkeeper became a hero. Their defenders became warriors. Their fans filled the streets with disbelief and pride. Suddenly, this team that everybody laughed at months before was one victory away from the semi-finals. They did not go that far in the end. But their run changed something important. The World Cup in 2018 would no longer be remembered as a boring political mistake. It would be remembered as the tournament where the host nation punched far above its weight and shocked the world. Croatia. The small country with a giant heart in the middle of all this chaos, there was one story that kept growing quietly, match by match. Croatia. A small country. A small population. But a huge group of players who refused to accept their place as just another decent European side. They dominated their group, including a 3-0 demolition of a football giant that left the world stunned. Their style was simple but brutal. Smart passing, deadly counters, and a midfield general who controlled games like a chess master. In the knockout rounds, they showed something even more terrifying than skill. They refused to die. Again and again, their matches went to extra time. Again and again, they found the energy to keep running, keep pressing, keep believing. They won not one, not two, but 3 knockout games in a row that went beyond 90 minutes. Every time people said they will be too tired, they proved everyone wrong. Croatia were not playing like a small country. They were playing like a team possessed by destiny. France. The new face of power. While Croatia were fighting through long, painful wars, another team was moving with cold efficiency on the other side of the bracket. France. Their squad was stacked with talent, pace, strength, technique, depth. But the most dangerous thing about them was not their skill. It was their control. They knew when to explode and when to suffocate the game. They could counter at full speed with young stars or slow things down with experienced heads. They knocked out Argentina in a wild goal fest. They handled Uruguay with maturity. They shut down Belgium in a tense semi-final decided by a single set piece. If Croatia were the emotional heroes of the tournament, France were the calculated killers. At the center of it all was a new superstar, running faster than anyone, scoring in big moments, and making world-class defenders look like they were stuck in slow motion. France looked like the future. Croatia looked like the ultimate underdog. And somehow, the script had set them up to meet in the final. The final collision. Heart versus system. The stage was perfect. On one side, a small country whose players had given every drop of energy to reach their first World Cup final. On the other side, a football empire in the making, loaded with young talent and tactical discipline. Croatia had heart, experience, and a midfield genius. France had speed, depth, and a ruthless understanding of how to win tournament games. The final turned into a summary of the entire World Cup. A strange own goal from a set piece. A controversial penalty given with help from video replay. Long-range shots. Defensive mistakes. Moments of pure brilliance. Croatia fought. They refused to give up. They scored. They looked dangerous. But France always seemed one step ahead. They scored 4 times. They allowed 2. They showed that in modern football, a well-prepared, balanced team can beat even the most heroic underdog. For France, it was a second World Cup title. For Croatia, it was the greatest achievement in their history, even in defeat. The real shock of 2018 when the final whistle blew, the easy headline was, "France are champions." But the deeper, more shocking truth of the 2018 World Cup was this: giants with history can fall in the group stage. Hosts can turn from jokes into heroes. Small countries can push heavyweights to the edge. A teenager can announce himself as a new global icon on the biggest stage. This was not the boring tournament people feared. It was a revolution. And while the trophy went to France, the real winner was the idea that no one owns the World Cup forever. The next time a so-called small team walks onto the pitch against a giant, they will remember 2018 and think, why not us?